Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm a little bit out of it. I apologize. I cracked a tooth this weekend, and half the tooth is loose right now, and it's kind of been tough sleeping last night. Anyway, I may run a little bit long today, but I got up this morning and went to work and was looking at some articles online, and one really jumped out at me. So if I run long today, I apologize, but today was something that I thought I had to talk about, and then that was also a really good story I want to recognize as well. But um, the thing that jumped out at me today is an article on Yahoo. Recently we had a couple of famous celebrities commit suicide, um, and that goes to show that suicide isn't just something that affects the poor, and and depression doesn't just affect certain people of a demographic and things like that. It affects everybody. And the one point that stuck out with me is something I want to touch on. I lead my life with several mantras, one of which is point the thumb, not the finger, which is what the basis of this whole trip is about. And I've come to find in talking to people that point the thumb means different things to different people, and that's fine. I think that's a great thing, as long as it makes you think, as long as it gives you pause before you do something, before you blame somebody else, whatever the case may be, whatever works for you. I really do hope that this thing takes off and everybody, starts to adopt that mantra, and I think we'll at least process things a lot quicker and better before we go blaming somebody else. But the other mantra I live by, and this is something that was touched on in the article, is I've always used a phrase, especially in my profession of management, where you can't have a rational conversation with an irrational person. And one of the things that triggered this article, and I want to be able to send the link to my Facebook page. What I found is when I went to go to the link, it went to my personal Facebook page and not the site. But anyway, the article was based upon something that Val Kilmer, an actor, had mentioned in commenting on Anthony Bourdain's suicide. And I don't think Val Kilmer was the one that said it, but he said he had met a spiritual guru or something like that, who had told him that suicide is the most selfish act that someone can do. And the problem with that statement, as the writer of the article, the Post, mentioned, is that we all tend to hang around with people of like mind, of like income, people that think like us, act like us, as a general rule, right? The problem is it's really easy to think and judge people by when you are of sane and rational mind. People that are depressed, they're not thinking rationally. And I think we would all be well served in any facet to understand that it's easy for us to sit back and judge people, comment on people who are in a completely different mindset than we are in. I've got to be honest, again, I'm going to point the thumb at myself, and I'm trying to be somewhat revealing of myself during this journey. One of the reasons I'm taking this journey, one of the things that's kind of sucked the life out of me is that, and I apologize if I get emotional again, but the only thing I've really been good at in life, and the only thing I ever wanted to be in life, was a great dad. So as a great dad, when you try to do that, you get compliments on the relationship you have with your kids and things like that. When your child comes home from school and says, "Dad, people suck," you feel like a complete failure. And I know I'm not, but it's hard to get past that. That statement preyed on me for a long time. There are other times in my life, well, I won't say I ever contemplated suicide, but there were definitely times in my life where you seem lost out there, and you ask yourself, what significance do you have in this world? I had 4 miscarriages in my life, and there were times when things aren't meant to be, and maybe someone's a bigger plan, and you go, really, what impact am I having on anybody? And again, I'm not saying I ever contemplated suicide, but you question things. But when I was questioning those things, I was in a state of some semi-depression. I wasn't over the top, but yeah, absolutely, I was depressed. And if someone tried to counsel me or talk to me, people, "Oh, you're crazy. You got it good. You don't know what you're talking about." People comment from their perspective. The thing that this person mentioned in this article that struck me as so brilliant was that people aren't rational when they do that. Recently, and look, I was that person as well. I'm not saying I wasn't. Early in my life, I was the one that would say things like that. For example, I had this conversation not long ago with somebody. We hear on the news far too often, and I'm not saying it happens every day, but far too often we hear it, where you hear about a spouse, and a strange spouse, that goes and kills their ex, their children, and themselves. And you know what everybody says almost immediately upon hearing that story? Why'd they have to kill the children for? I said that many times. But then when you have to understand, and you don't have to understand it, but I will try to help you from my perspective, is that, you know, we're looking at that from a perspective of you know, sanity, of right mind, of being in a good place. You know, the person that goes to that extreme, I'm not saying this is the case, but in their mind, they're doing those children a favor. I'm not saying it's right, believe me guys, I'm not saying that. But nobody goes out to hurt anybody. I mean, yes, there are times where somebody might hurt a child to get back at a spouse if they're, you know, but again, that is a mental derangement, really. And, you know, in every course of life, I've had it in my business profession where, you know, I've had employees that you try to talk logically to, and you and 20 people can see it that way, and no matter what happens, they're never going to see it that way. And the problem is you're having a rational conversation with an irrational person. I am a huge follower of the Dr. Phil show. I would liken to think I've seen maybe every episode. He's on the OWN network, and I watch reruns through the day and night. I only watch like 4 channels. Someday I'll share my 5 favorite Dr. Philisms. But you know, it's funny, if you ever watch that show or any show like it, there will be, he'll have some guest on there, and that guest, whatever the case may be, maybe they're a raging alcoholic, maybe they're a self-absorbed, egocentric, whatever it might be, you have an audience of 400 people, all in agreement that this person's behavior is not rational, not sane, not normal. But yet that person will sit there and dig their toes in and right fight, as he calls it, and just keep arguing that they're right. There's nothing that you're going to be able to say to a person in that mode, because they're not thinking rationally. And the more you try to have a rational conversation with an irrational person, the more you find how frustrating it becomes. And that unless you're a professional with the name of a Dr. Phil or something like that, you know, the average everyday person may not reach that person. So again, one of the things that triggered that article was something that's been said to me. I've had one of the 2 or 3 closest people to me, when I told them what I was doing about this journey, why I was doing it, basically scream, curse, tell me I'm selfish. And it was that selfish comment that had to make me laugh, because in my mind, I'm doing this for 2 reasons. One is to be able to give my kids the gift that says, hey, you know what, I can tell you, I went out and experienced it and I lived it, that people aren't that bad. And what greater gift can I possibly give my kids than that? I can work 2 jobs, I can work 3 jobs, I can give them material things, I can buy them toys that they'll play with for a week and be done with. I can take them to concerts or ball games, and those will create memories. But to me, what greater gift could I give my kids? And so when I came up with this plan, I was kind of excited. And then to have somebody close to me tell me I'm selfish was very deflating. And again, maybe from their standpoint, it is. And maybe I'm not rational. Well, I mean, how rational is it to say I'm going to walk 3,000 miles and approach people I don't even know and ask them to help me? Maybe it's not rational at all, really. But the point is, you know, we all get together with our friends, like people, like mind, like income, and we make comments and judgments coming from the place that we're at. And the thing, as I said, that struck out in this article to me was that, you know, this person, having suffered from depression, you know, wants to make it clear that it's not selfish, because at that point in time, you know, you're in pain and you just want the pain to stop. And you're not thinking rationally about what you're doing to other people and things like that. I don't know, it just really hit me this morning, and I didn't want to go, and I was going to be compelled to do this video this morning, but I didn't want to do it from my home, where my children are, because I didn't know how I was going to be. I also I don't know if you can see behind me, but I'm at a park where it's nice and quiet and just has nature around me, which is making me feel a little bit more calm. But so again, guys, if you can understand that when these news stories come out, it's easy to pass judgment and say, what the heck? What, you know, maybe worse than that. But you know, the world is full of people that are suffering varying degrees of depression, mental illness, things like that. There was one person in my life that was a contributor to me feeling like no matter what I did, I couldn't do anything right. I don't blame that person, but I was involved in a relationship for several years with somebody that, whether they want to admit it or not, they're suffering from some form of mental illness. She has kind of this crazy anxiety, and it's hard to understand how. And I'm not the only one. This is, again, I'm hoping I just reach even just one person out there that can put themselves and understand, and maybe something will click. But this person, I just have a hard time reconciling that you can be with somebody who, when they're on, they're just absolutely perfect for you. They're good to you. They're good to your children. They love you to no end. A gentle touch, a word of encouragement. Just the what I always say is the best feeling is when you're sitting in a room with somebody that you love, and you're not even touching each other, talking. You're doing two different things, right? But just their presence makes you feel safe and strong, more confident and loved. And that's what I had a lot of the time. But then with the flip of a switch, that same person that claims to love you and care about you and want nothing but the best for you can turn that switch and become not just unhappy, but attacking, accusatory, vicious. And you know, you have a hard time, at least I had a hard time reconciling, how can the same person that claims to love me, that can put their hand on my back or my arm or my leg, and I feel this incredible energy, this person who I can't wait to go home and hold at night, and then with the flick of a switch, I can't even be in the same, you know, home as them. How does that happen? How can that one person be both people at the same time? And when that anxiety hits, when that mental illness hits, when that depression hits, when these people withdraw, whatever they do, you know, the one thing is we have to understand they're not rational at that moment. And in my instance, this person, their behavior, I mean, it wasn't kind of borderline. The behavior in certain instances, and I can go into detail, which I won't, but the behavior is so over the top that it's shocking. It's shocking. It causes you to scratch your chin and your head. And you know, I don't have a lot of people in my life, as I've told you. And when I would go to folks I know and kind of tell them what went down, I would get what I always got, you know, which is what we all do. Oh, you got to get away from that. That's crazy. You know, who behaves like that? And in that moment, all that person did was react as they were seeing things from their mindset. And as wrong as it was, as egregious as it was so over the top and out of line. And then the relationship was on again and off again so many times, because there were times when I just can't do this anymore. And we would work our way back together again. And people would ask me, you know, why do you keep taking her back? Why do you guys keep getting back together? Maybe they ask her the same thing about me. I don't know. But the reason I did was because if you could experience those 4 or 5 days before the switch got flipped, you would know what great was. And then we got back because in my mind, I knew the person that was committing this egregious behavior, this person that was suffering from what they were suffering from, it wasn't them. And I just kept hoping that they could get help for that. Because if they could have got help for that, you know, I couldn't have asked for a better partner. The problem was people need to, again, another Dr. Philism, you need to, you can't